The day humanity learned they weren't alone should have been marked by celebration. Instead, it became known as the day the galaxy learned to fear. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of the ESS Endeavour, Earth's flagship diplomatic vessel, watching the swirling lights of the Galactic Assembly's central station. After decades of listening to the stars, humanity had finally received their answer. The Assembly had welcomed Earth with open arms, or whatever passed for arms among the dozen species that made up the galactic community. That was 6 months ago. Now she wished they'd never answered that first transmission. Admiral. Her XO's voice cracked over the comm. We're receiving an emergency broadcast from New Eden. New Eden, humanity's first extrasolar colony. Population 50,000. Mostly farmers, researchers, and their families who'd braved the challenge of building a new home 20 light years from Earth. The holographic display flickered to life, showing chaos. The colony's governor, James Martinez, looked like he hadn't slept in days. Behind him, emergency lights painted everything in harsh red. This is an emergency broadcast to all Earth forces. We are under attack. I repeat, New Eden is under attack by forces identifying themselves as the Kraxan Empire. Martinez ducked as something exploded in the background. They bypassed our defensive grid like it wasn't even there. They're demanding immediate surrender and integration into their protective sphere. Chen's fingers dug into the console. The Kraxan Empire, a minor power according to Assembly briefings, one that apparently hadn't gotten the memo about Earth being under Assembly protection. Sir, her tactical officer called out. New Eden's quantum void just went dark. Last transmission indicates multiple capital ships entering orbit. Chen closed her eyes, remembering the Assembly representatives' patronizing tone during their last meeting. Humanity is young, they'd said. You must understand your place in the galactic order. Send an emergency broadcast to Earth Command, Chen ordered, her voice steadied despite the rage building in her chest. Then get me a direct line to the Assembly Council. The next few minutes passed in tense silence. When the Assembly's holographic representation appeared, a shifting collection of lights representing the dozen member species, Chen didn't wait for their formal greeting. New Eden is under attack by the Kraxan Empire, she stated flatly. Our colony's quantum communications have been severed. We require immediate assistance under Article 7 of the Protection Treaty. The lights swirled in what Chen had learned was their equivalent of uncomfortable shifting. Ah, Admiral Chen, the collected voice echoed. We have received reports of this unfortunate situation. However, given the complexity of interstellar politics and the Kraxan Empire's historical claims to that sector, Chen cut them off. Historical claims? New Eden is a human colony. The sector was uninhabited when we arrived. Your own surveys confirmed this. Yes, but the Kraxan Empire's sphere of influence. Influence doesn't equal ownership. Chen's voice could have frozen plasma. Are you going to honor our protection treaty? More uncomfortable swirling. The Assembly must debate this matter fully before committing to any action. Perhaps if humanity were willing to negotiate some concessions. Chen straightened, her expression hardening. I understand completely. XO, end transmission. The hologram vanished mid-protest. Chen turned to her crew, seeing the same cold anger in their eyes that she felt in her heart. Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Tell them the Assembly has chosen bureaucracy over justice, and tell them it's time to show the galaxy why humanity's history books are filled with tales of those who mistook our patience for weakness. The next 12 hours became a blur of activity. Every human ship within range altered course for New Eden. On Earth, military installations that had been dormant since the Third World War hummed to life. Research facilities that had been working on peaceful applications of assembly technology suddenly found new purpose. The Kraxan Empire had made a crucial mistake. They'd looked at humanity's relatively primitive technology and assumed they'd found an easy target. They hadn't bothered to study human history. hadn't learned about the species that had turned the splitting of atoms into an art form, that had survived their own attempts at self-destruction, that had clawed their way to the stars through sheer determination. They hadn't realized that humans were very, very good at turning peaceful technology into weapons when properly motivated. As Chen prepared her ship for combat, a message arrived from Earth Command. The contents were brief but brought a grim smile to her face. Operation Prometheus authorized. Show them why you don't punch down at a species that invented mutually assured destruction. The Endeavor's engines flared to life, its peaceful diplomatic markings now seeming more like war paint. Chen addressed her crew one final time before jumping to faster than light. The assembly thinks we're too young to understand galactic politics. The Kraxan Empire thinks we're too primitive to fight back. It's time to educate them both on why humanity's history of warfare isn't something to be dismissed. She paused, allowing herself a small, dangerous smile. Let's go remind them why the sweet ones are always the scariest when they finally lose their temper. As the Endeavor disappeared into FTL, followed by every combat-capable human ship in range, the assembly's sensors registered something unusual. The humans were doing something with their FTL drives that should have been impossible, breaking physics in ways that made the assembly scientists scratch their various appendages in confusion. It was humanity's first lesson to the galaxy. Never assume that a species' technological advancement equals their capacity for innovation, especially when that species had spent most of its history finding creative ways to survive against all odds. The galaxy was about to learn why humans were simultaneously the best friends you could have and the worst enemies you could make. Dr. Maya Patil never thought her medical nanites would become weapons of war. Yet here she stood in Earth's primary military research facility, watching as her life's work transformed into something the galaxy had never seen. The beauty of it, she explained to the assembled military brass, is that the Kraxan's shields were designed to stop energy weapons and kinetic impacts. They never considered defending against something as primitive as medical technology. On the display behind her, microscopic robots originally designed to repair human tissue now systematically dismantled a captured piece of Kraxan armor. The aliens had laughed at humanity's crude technology. They wouldn't be laughing much longer. Across the facility, similar transformations were taking place. Mining lasers recalibrated to penetrate warship hulls, terraforming equipment repurposed to destabilize planetary crusts. Agricultural processing systems turned into molecular disassemblers. Humanity hadn't spent centuries developing peaceful technology without understanding its destructive potential. Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the quantum comm. The Kraxan have established orbital superiority over New Eden. They're beginning planetary deployment. General Marcus Rodriguez, Earth's newly appointed Supreme Commander, nodded grimly. How many civilians evacuated? 30%. The rest are trapped planetside. Rodriguez studied the tactical display, where red dots representing Kraxan ships surrounded the green sphere of New Eden. Dr. Patel, are your modifications ready? The first batch of combat nanites is prepared. But sir, they haven't been fully tested. Neither was the atomic bomb when we first used it, Rodriguez interrupted. Sometimes humanity's greatest technological leaps come from necessity. In orbit around Mars, the first wave of modified civilian ships prepared for battle. Their hulls bristled with retrofitted mining equipment and agricultural processors turned to military use. The ships looked crude compared to the sleek Kraxan vessels, but appearances were deceiving. All ships, this is Supreme Command. Operation Prometheus is now active. Show these aliens why humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our creativity. The human fleet jumped into action, using FTL modifications that the Assembly had declared theoretically impossible. They emerged in New Eden's orbit in patterns that seemed random but followed algorithms derived from Earth's weather systems, another innovation the Kraxan's tactical computers couldn't predict. By the void, a Kraxan commander exclaimed as the first wave of combat nanites breached his ship's shields. How are they penetrating our defenses with medical equipment? The answer came in the form of hull breaches as the nanites, guided by AI systems based on Earth's viral algorithms, systematically disassembled Kraxan warships from the inside out. Elsewhere, modified terraforming beams destabilized shield frequencies in ways that should have been impossible according to assembly physics. Their weapons, another Kraxan officer reported in panic, they're using mining lasers calibrated to. The transmission cut off as his ship's command center was exposed to vacuum, the hull transformed into its component atoms by repurposed agricultural processors. From her flagship, Chen watched the battle unfold. The Kraxans' formation was crumbling, their superior technology proving worthless against humanity's innovative applications of primitive technology. Ships that could shrug off plasma torpedoes fell to medical nanites. Vessels that could dodge faster than light projectiles couldn't evade attacks based on Earth's weather patterns. Send word to the rescue fleet, Chen ordered. New Eden's orbit is nearly secured. Begin planetary operations. On the surface of New Eden, Kraxan ground forces suddenly found their advanced armor being disassembled by invisible swarms of nanites. Their energy shields, designed to stop plasma and kinetic weapons, did nothing against attacks that worked on the molecular level. In the assembly central chamber, the member species watched in horror as footage of the battle reached them. Impossible, one representative declared. They're using medical technology as weapons, mining equipment as military tools. They're breaking every conventional rule of warfare. No, another corrected. It's crystalline form vibrating with fear. They're writing new ones. Back on Earth, Dr. Patel watched the battle telemetry with a mixture of pride and sadness. We never wanted to weaponize these technologies, she said softly. All of this was meant to help people, to build things, to heal. General Rodriguez placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. And after today, it will again. But first, we need to teach the galaxy a lesson about underestimating humanity's capacity for innovation. The battle for New Eden became known throughout the galaxy as the day everything changed. The day when a primitive species proved that true advancement wasn't measured by the age of your civilization or the power of your weapons, but by the creativity with which you used the tools at hand. As news of the battle spread, other galactic powers rushed to update their tactical databases. They added a new primary directive. Never assume that humanity's peaceful technology couldn't become deadly in an instant, because when pushed, humans didn't just think outside the box. They turned the box itself into a weapon. The Kraxan Empire's high command had made a fundamental error in their strategic calculations. They had studied Earth's history of internal conflicts and concluded that humanity would fracture under pressure. Instead, the opposite occurred. In what would later be known as the Santiago Accord, Earth's nations gathered in Chile to forge an unprecedented alliance. Former adversaries now sat side by side, centuries of rivalry set aside in the face of a common threat. The Chinese quantum computing arrays are ready, announced Dr. Lai Wei, addressing the Global Defense Council. When combined with Indian AI systems and Brazilian predictive models, we can process battle strategies faster than any known species. President Sarah Mbeki of the African Union nodded in approval. Our orbital defense platforms have been upgraded with Russian plasma containment systems and Japanese precision targeting. The Kraxan won't find Earth as defenseless as New Eden was. What the Kraxan Empire failed to understand was that humanity's historical conflicts hadn't weakened them. They had created a species that excelled at warfare from every possible angle. Now those diverse approaches were being combined in ways that defied conventional galactic military doctrine. American stealth technology merged with European energy systems. Australian survival tactics adapted for space warfare. Canadian environmental adaptation protocols repurposed for ship-to-ship combat. Each nation contributed its unique strengths to create something entirely new. In orbit above Mars, Admiral Chen watched as the combined fleet conducted its first joint exercises. Ships from every nation moved in perfect synchronization, their crews working together as if they'd trained for years instead of weeks. The Kraxan intercepted our quantum transmissions, her communications officer reported. They're calling us primitive savages playing with toys we don't understand. Chen allowed herself a small smile. They still don't get it, do they? Send them our response. The savage knows the value of every tool. On Earth's moon, the newly established United Defense Force Academy was already producing its first graduates. Officers from every military tradition shared their knowledge, creating hybrid combat doctrines that combined centuries of human martial wisdom with cutting-edge technology. The beauty of it, explained Colonel Yuki Tanaka to her international class, is that we're not trying to match the Kraxen's technology level for level. We're transcending it by combining everything we know in ways they've never imagined. In orbit around Jupiter, automated factories, previously competing commercial enterprises, now worked in concert. American manufacturing efficiency combined with German engineering precision and Korean miniaturization techniques. The results were weapons and defensive systems that looked deceptively simple but contained layers of innovation no single nation could have achieved alone. The assembly's observers watched with growing unease as humanity's united war machine took shape. Their reports back to the Council carried increasingly urgent warnings. They're not just adapting, they're evolving. Every attempt to counter their technologies results in new innovations we can't predict. What terrified the Assembly most wasn't the speed of human advancement, it was the unprecedented level of cooperation. Species that achieved unity through external threats typically fractured once the danger passed. But humanity was different. They weren't just cooperating. They were synthesizing their cultures and knowledge into something entirely new. In a secure facility beneath the Himalayas, Dr. Patel worked alongside an international team of scientists. The Kraxen's latest shield modifications are specifically designed to counter our nanite attacks, she announced to the assembled researchers. Dr. Ivanov, a Russian quantum physicist, grinned. Then it's good thing we've combined your nanites with Chinese quantum tunneling principles. The shields can't stop what they can't detect. A holographic display showed their latest creation. Microscopic machines that could exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously. It was an impossible merger of different scientific principles that worked simply because no one had told them it couldn't. General Rodriguez, observing the latest briefing from Orbital Command, summarized humanity's transformation. For centuries, we fought each other because we approached problems differently. Now those different approaches are our greatest strength. The Kraxen thought they could divide and conquer. Instead, they've united us in ways we never thought possible. The Santiago Accord became more than just a military alliance. It became the foundation for a new chapter in human history. Nations retained their uniqueness while working in perfect harmony, not despite their differences, but because of them. As the united human fleet prepared for its counteroffensive, the Kraxen Empire intercepted transmissions from Earth's combined command. They expected to find signs of strain in the alliance, of old rivalries resurfacing. Instead, they found something that chilled them to their core, humanity laughing together as they prepared for war, different languages and cultures blending seamlessly in pursuit of a common goal. The galaxy was about to learn that while humanity's capacity for conflict was legendary, their capacity for unity in the face of external threats was nothing short of miraculous. The battle that would reshape galactic history began not with a bang, but with silence. Complete communication silence, as the united human fleet dropped out of their impossible FTL configurations around the Kraxen Empire's primary military installation. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the ESS Endeavour, now transformed from a diplomatic vessel into humanity's most advanced warship. The ship's hull gleamed with a coating of quantum state nanites, while repurposed agricultural processors hummed beneath its armor. The Kraxen fleet is responding exactly as predicted, her tactical officer reported. They're forming up in their standard defensive sphere, just like the Brazilian game theory model suggested. Chen nodded. Send the signal. Operation Glasshouse is go. Across the human fleet, ships began executing maneuvers based on Earth's most chaotic natural phenomena. Some moved like hurricane patterns, others like tectonic plate movements. To the Kraxen's tactical computers, it looked like madness. They'd lost their minds, Warlord Kextar of the Kraxen fleet declared, watching the human ships scatter in seemingly random directions. No species fights like this. There's no logic, no. His words cut off as the first wave of quantum-shifted nanites passed straight through his flagship's shields. The particles existed in multiple states simultaneously, making them effectively invisible to Kraxen sensors until the moment they materialized. Impossible. Kextar roared as system after system began failing. Their weapons can't. Sir, his science officer interrupted, voice trembling. They're not using weapons. They're using medical equipment, mining tools, and are those agricultural processors. The human fleet's true strategy became apparent. Ships moving in hurricane patterns created vortexes of quantum-destabilized space. Vessels following tectonic movements opened gaps in reality that the Kraxen's sensors couldn't track. Each seemingly chaotic movement was part of a greater pattern, like a deadly dance choreographed by nature itself. In Earth's combined command center, Dr. Patel and her international team monitored the battle. The nanites are adapting faster than their countermeasures, she reported. The fusion of Chinese quantum principles with Indian swarm algorithms is working perfectly. General Rodriguez watched as the tactical display showed Kraxen ships falling into carefully laid traps. Who would have thought that ancient weather patterns would make the perfect blueprint for space warfare? The Kraxen's mighty fleet, terror of 1,000 star systems, found itself being systematically dismantled by technology they had dismissed as primitive. Their energy shields, designed to stop conventional weapons, were useless against attacks that came through quantum states. Their advanced targeting systems couldn't track ships moving like natural disasters. They're using their FTL drives as weapons, a Kraxen commander reported in panic. Human ships would accelerate to faster-than-light speeds, then drop back to normal space inside the quantum wake of another vessel, creating cascading disruptions that rippled through reality itself. Admiral Chen watched as the Kraxen formation began to crumble. Send in the Lazarus Squadron, a fleet of smaller ships, each piloted by the combined AI systems of a dozen nations, darted between the larger vessels. They carried no conventional weapons at all, only modified terraforming equipment that transformed space itself into a weapon. This is madness. Kextar transmitted on all frequencies. You're breaking every law of physics. No, Chen responded calmly. We're just the first ones to realize that the laws of physics are more like guidelines when you're creative enough. The battle reached its climax as the human fleet executed what they called the Pangaea maneuver. Ships moved in patterns mimicking the ancient supercontinent's breakup, creating a web of quantum distortions that trapped the remaining Kraxen vessels in a maze of twisted space-time. You could surrender, Chen offered as her fleet closed in. We'd accept it graciously. Humans are generally forgiving once you stop trying to kill us. The Kraxen Empire's response came swiftly, not from their military command, but from their High Council itself. The Kraxen Empire formally surrenders to the United Earth government and its allies. As the human fleet secured their victory, the Assembly's observers frantically updated their reports. They had witnessed something unprecedented, a primitive species using the fundamental forces of nature itself as weapons, medical technology that crossed quantum states, mining equipment that rewrote spatial laws, agricultural processors that unmade matter at its most basic level. But what truly terrified them wasn't the technology. It was how the humans had achieved it, not through centuries of development, but through weeks of creative cooperation. They had taken their greatest weakness, their diversity of approaches, and turned it into an unstoppable strength. As the dust settled, Admiral Chen transmitted one final message to the defeated Kraxen fleet. Remember this day, not just as the day you lost, but as the day you learned why the most dangerous species in the galaxy aren't the ones with the biggest ships or the most advanced weapons. They're the ones who look at the impossible and say, we can work with that. 1 month after the Battle of Kraxen Prime, The Galactic Assembly Chamber looked very different. The floating lights that represented member species now orbited around a new addition, a holographic DNA helix, humanity's chosen symbol in galactic politics. Admiral Chen, now Earth's ambassador to the Assembly, stood before the gathered representatives. She wore her military uniform rather than diplomatic robes, a reminder of how humanity had earned its place at this table. The terms of the Kraxan Empire's surrender are non-negotiable, she stated, her voice carrying the weight of a species that had proven itself far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. They will withdraw from all human territories, pay reparations to New Eden survivors, and submit to monitoring by a joint Assembly human peacekeeping force. The Assembly lights swirled, and what Chen had learned was their equivalent of nervous fidgeting. These terms seem harsh, the collective voice ventured. Harsh. Chen raised an eyebrow. We could have demanded their complete disarmament. Instead, we're offering them a chance to remain a sovereign power under supervision. We believe in second chances, but we also believe in consequences. In the rebuilt streets of New Eden, those consequences were already visible. Human and Kraxan engineering teams worked side by side, rebuilding what had been destroyed. The Kraxan workers had been startled to discover that their human counterparts harbored no personal hatred, only a firm insistence on doing better going forward. Your species is difficult to understand. A Kraxan engineer had admitted to Dr. Patel as they collaborated on reconstruction efforts. You turn medical equipment into weapons of war, then immediately return to using it for healing. Patel had smiled. That's because we never wanted to be warriors. We just happened to be very, very good at it when pushed. In Earth's Combined Command Center, now transformed into the headquarters of the new Human Defense Force, General Rodriguez reviewed reports from across the galaxy. The Assembly's member species were scrambling to revise their diplomatic protocols. The phrase, "But what will the humans think?" had become common in galactic political discourse. They're afraid of us now, Rodriguez mused to his international staff. That was never our goal. No, President Makey agreed, attending via hologram from the African Union. But perhaps fear isn't the right word. They respect us. They've learned that humanity's greatest strength isn't our weapons or our technology. It's our adaptability. The Santiago Accord, originally formed for war, had evolved into something greater. Earth's nations maintained their unique identities while working in unprecedented harmony. The innovations born of necessity continued in peacetime, with advances in medicine, engineering, and science that benefited all of humanity. In the assembly chambers, Shen concluded her presentation of the peace terms. "We look forward to a new era of galactic cooperation," she said. "One where assumptions about primitive species are left in the past, and where the strength of civilization is measured not by the age of its technology, but by the wisdom with which it uses it." The assembly lights pulsed in agreement, though Chen noted they kept a respectful distance from Earth's DNA helix. They had learned that humanity's extended hand of friendship was genuine, but so was their capacity for devastating innovation when threatened. As Chen prepared to depart, a crystalline representative approached her privately. "There is much discussion among the assembly species," it vibrated softly, "about how a race so young could achieve so much so quickly." Chen smiled. "Perhaps that's because you're asking the wrong question. The real mystery isn't how we achieved it, it's why we waited so long to do so. Humanity's greatest trait isn't our technology or our warfare. It's our ability to look at the impossible and see possibilities." The representative's crystalline form shimmered. "And what possibilities do you see now, Ambassador?" Chen gazed out at the star-filled viewport, where ships of all species navigated the busy lanes around the assembly station. Human vessels moved among them, their designs already influencing galactic engineering as species rushed to understand how such primitive ships had achieved the impossible. "I see a galaxy learning that peace isn't about avoiding conflict, it's about making the cost of conflict too high to contemplate. I see species realizing that true strength comes not from technological superiority, but from the wisdom to know when to use it. She paused, allowing herself a small smile. And I see a future where humanity's reputation for turning everyday tools into supreme weapons ensures that we rarely have to actually do so. As her words spread through the assembly, a new understanding settled over galactic civilization. Humanity had not merely won a war, they had revolutionized how species viewed each other. They had proven that true advancement wasn't measured in years or technology, but in the creativity and unity shown in facing challenges. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humans were the best friends you could have, the worst enemies you could make, and the most innovative problem solvers in known space. But most importantly, they had learned that somewhere in humanity's DNA was a unique combination of traits: adaptability, unity in diversity, and relentless innovation that made them not just survivors, but revolutionaries. The age of assuming humanity's place in the galactic order was over. The age of humanity helping to reshape that order had begun.